My POV. I couldn't resist my boss and took the once-in-a-lifetime chance. He took brutal revenge. Hello all, my name is Shirley, and I am 29 years young. I had started dating Daniel for 1 year. Daniel was 31 and had been divorced. His divorce was due to his wife cheating on him, as per his side of the story. He said that he is now looking for companionship, which could get him out of this state of constant fear of being cheated on. I did not mind that Daniel was very good in bed, and marriage was not something we both were looking forward to in the future. We enjoyed each other's company and had a strong physical connection. However, as time went on, I started to realize that Daniel's fear of being cheated on was affecting our relationship in ways I hadn't anticipated. Daniel had always been very possessive regarding me. Initially, this was the quality that I adored about him. I felt like I was the most important person in his life. He would send me texts and call me every now and then to just check on me and know if I was bored or needed something. It felt quite romantic at the start. Slowly, it moved on to him keeping a track on my schedule and my whereabouts. He would get grumpy when I had to work out of the office for a few gatherings and meetings. I started feeling suffocated and realized that his possessiveness was becoming controlling. It became clear that his behavior was not a sign of love, but rather insecurity and jealousy. I knew I needed to address this issue before it escalated further. We started having a few deep and meaningful conversations around his habit of being overly indulgent in my life. Daniel tried to explain that it was a trait that he had developed due to his cheating wife, and he has been trying too hard to let go of it. He expressed how difficult it was for him to trust again after being betrayed. And I realized that his actions were not a reflection of his feelings towards me, but rather a result of his past experiences. I decided to be patient and understanding as he worked through his insecurities. I tried to give him another chance and see if he does anything to change his behavior. It was not like I was obligated to stay with him. I always knew that I had the choice to walk away if it got too much for me. At least I was a bit at ease with that thought in my mind. I wanted to give him the opportunity to prove himself, but also knew my own worth and boundaries. If he continued to betray my trust, I knew I would have to prioritize my own well-being and walk away from the relationship. My work was going great in terms of my progress and my achievements. I had a new boss who would be replacing my old man with his grandson, who was much younger and equally attractive. He made our office a brighter place, and all the women would drool over him every time he passed by them. He looked like he knew the effect his presence brought, and somewhere even enjoyed it. His charisma and confidence were undeniable, and it was clear that he was comfortable in his new role. Despite the initial shock of the change in leadership, his positive impact on the office morale was undeniable. His ability to lead with charm and charisma quickly won over the team, and his fresh perspective brought new energy to our projects. Overall, the transition to a younger boss turned out to be a positive change for both the office environment and our productivity. I only heard stories about him being a playboy and would sleep with any girl who showed even an iota of interest in him. I did not mind being one of the girls that he would want to sleep with. I mean, he was so attractive, and from what I heard, he was too good in bed. I just wanted to experience it once, as my love life, rather sex life, was going horrible with Daniel. I wondered if this was the reason why his wife had to cheat on him. Maybe he lost interest after a while, and sex became a boring routine in his marriage, which made his wife want to experiment outside. I couldn't help but be curious about what it would be like to be with someone so desirable. The idea of a passionate encounter with him seemed thrilling, especially compared to the lackluster intimacy I was experiencing with Daniel. I told myself that there was nothing wrong with fantasizing about him. I was curious to see if the rumors were true, but deep down I knew that getting involved with someone like him could lead to putting my job on the line. Despite the allure, I reminded myself to proceed with caution. I was assigned to a new project and had to work with Jack, who was already famous for all the wrong reasons, and I had been dying to work with him. I also wanted to experience what it was like working with Jack, as I had very high expectations from the stories I heard about his wild fantasies from the girls who had previously worked with him. I was in awe at how all of this did not affect him even a bit, and how he behaved so professionally during all the meetings, even after repeatedly sleeping with the same women. Despite his reputation, Jack proved to be a dedicated and talented colleague, always delivering exceptional work. Working with him was a valuable learning experience that challenged my preconceived notions about professionalism in the industry. We started making good progress on the project and also our personal connection. I often noticed Jack giving me mischievous signs and gestures. He would rub his hands against my ass or my arms while walking past me and wink at me when I looked at him, realizing what he had done. I knew that I was his next target that he wanted to sleep with. I also realized that I did not want to take it too far. I just wanted to tease him a bit and then leave him dry. As in my head, I was very clear as to not cheat on Daniel. I just wanted to have a little fun and raise his expectations and leave him dry at the end. I decided to play along with his game, enjoying the attention but making sure not to cross any lines. I made it clear through my body language that I was only interested in harmless flirting, leaving him intrigued but ultimately unsatisfied. It had been a few weeks with Jack and me flirting around and sharing signals. The game was getting boring, and I kind of had an idea that Jack was losing interest in me and trying to find another source of entertainment. I took it on my ego and did not want to let him win this game. I decided to step up my flirting game and show Jack what he was missing out on. I made sure to be more engaging and mysterious, keeping him on his toes and wanting more. I waited after one of our meetings, and I sneaked a kiss on his lips before leaving the room and smiled at him as I left the room. Looking at Jack's expression, I knew that I was back in the game. I felt a rush of adrenaline and excitement at the thought of potentially reigniting the spark between us. It was clear that my bold move had caught his attention, and I was ready to see where this new dynamic would take us. I decided to be bold one day and allowed him to take a peek at my breasts after a meeting, while leaving to keep him hooked and visualize what more he could imagine was to come. I checked his reaction quickly before leaving and knew that he was satisfied with what he saw. I winked at him and made my exit to let him know that I was interested in taking things forward. I could sense the excitement in his eyes, and it fueled my confidence to pursue a more intimate connection with him. As I walked away, I couldn't help but feel a rush of anticipation for what might happen next between us. One day, Jack sent me a text and said that we need to take things to the next level, as he was bored of the cat and mouse chase and wanted to end it. I knew that I had to be on good terms with him, at least till the end of the project. I decided that making out a little would not be a harm if it helped me end the project in peace. I promised myself that I would not overdo it and just stick to my plan of when to stop. Maybe a few kisses, and probably base 2 was something that would be harmless. I reminded myself to stay focused on the end goal and not let emotions cloud my judgment. It was important to maintain professionalism and boundaries throughout the project. I met Jack in the stairway, and we made out for a few minutes. He suggested that we take it to his cabin, but I knew that I might have very little control once we were in a confined space. And also I knew that Daniel might have someone updating him about my actions in the office, so I did not want to risk it. I politely declined Jack's offer and suggested we find a more private place another time. I wanted to maintain professionalism in the workplace and avoid any potential drama. I could see Jack slowly drifting apart from my clutches, so I told him that maybe we would get a chance to do much more during the conference, and asked him to look forward to it. I winked at him and let him grope my ass before leaving him all high and dry again. A few days later, I saw Jack with another chick who had been working on the project with us. Her main purpose was to organize files, as she was dumb to do anything else. She was sitting on Jack's lap, and I knew that whatever was going on was more than just sitting. Jack had the nerve to call me in while she was still there, and ask me about the progress on my part of the project. I knew that he was giving me a warning that it was this easy for him to move on to the next attractive thing. I don't know why, but it seemed to be working. I was filled with rage as I wanted to be in her place and feel his masculine body against mine. The lust was taking over, and my rational brain was shutting off. I had to remind myself that getting involved with a coworker could jeopardize my career. But the temptation was overwhelming, and I found myself struggling to resist the urge to act on my desires. I texted Jack on impulse that we would have a wonderful time at the conference, and something that he might have not experienced with anyone else. I was confident that my sex game was top-notch, and no guy could resist it. Jack was just another guy and nothing special. All I had to do was manage Daniel, and this would be a one-off thing and nothing more. Though I knew that my relationship with Daniel was going nowhere, I still wanted to not be the one who would be cheating on her boyfriend. I kept having these weird dreams about me and Jack having incredible sex till the day of the conference. It was clear that my lust was overpowering all other emotions, and also my sanity to think clearly as to what I had got myself into. I knew that I had the best chance when Daniel was away to get my hands on Jack and taste him without raising any eyebrows and causing doubts in Daniel's head. It would be impossible for me to do anything with Daniel being in town, so I decided to grab this opportunity. I had been making attempts to get Jack's attention for the past few weeks, and I knew that he was liking this game that we had been playing. I made sure to dress my best and act extra flirty when I knew Jack would be around. I was determined to make the most of this chance and finally see where things could go with him. Finally, it was D-Day, and I knew this was a make-or-break opportunity for me to sleep with him. We had a conference after which Jack had decided to have a meeting with me in his room to discuss a few changes to the presentation. I knew that Daniel would be busy on a flight, so there was no way that he could disturb me and get pissed for not getting any replies from me. It was a sign that everything was falling into place, and I felt very positive about the entire situation. I kind of felt like this was meant to happen, and it would be good for me. I stayed back, and we made out for a little while. I told him that we should continue after our pitch, which was going to be in a couple of hours. We would have all the time in the world after that to enjoy each other's company. Jack told me to come to his room in the evening after we were done with all the formal business that needed to be taken care of. I agreed and gave him a peck before leaving to get myself prepared. I was deciding what to wear when I heard a knock and a package was sent from Jack for me, which consisted of a kinky baby doll dress, which barely covered anything. I wondered if he wanted me to show up at his door just wearing this. I felt super excited to know that he knew what actually makes me look the best. I immediately tried on the dress and felt confident and sexy in it. I couldn't wait to surprise Jack with how amazing I looked in his gift. I went to his room and saw him wearing just a bathrobe. I was wearing another dress and not the one he had sent me. I could see a bit of disappointment on his face when he noticed what I was wearing. He did not mention anything, but I could sense the atmosphere in the room change. He offered me a drink and asked me to make myself comfortable. We initially started talking about work, and I kind of started feeling that maybe he thought that I was not up for whatever he had planned for the night. I said that I wanted to use the bathroom and came out in the baby doll dress that he had sent over to my room. I slowly walked up to him with a glass of wine and asked him if he wanted a sip from mine. I could see the sudden change in expression from him thinking that I was not up for it. I was willing to take it as far as I could. I could see a glint of lust in his eyes seeing me in the dress that he had sent me. He walked towards me and took a sip from my glass, closing the distance between us. The act itself was so seductive that it was turning me on. I could tell that he was enjoying the visuals that I was giving him, so I decided to arouse him a little more. I went and lay down on the bed in a very sexy pose that highlighted my curves. As he approached, I could feel the tension building between us, his gaze lingering on my body. I knew at that moment that things were about to escalate quickly. Jack was very pleased with what I had brought in and the new ways of enjoying sex. After we were done with sex and fondling with each other, he did mention that all the wait was worth it. I told him that I already knew that he would have the time of his life, and also told him that this was the first and last time that we would be hooking up. I told him up front that I just wanted to experience having sex with him after hearing all the rumors. I did not feel anything else for him apart from the sexual attraction. I knew that now that the project was over, there was nothing Jack could do about me being honest with him. He could not make me quit my job, as whatever we did was consensual. I made it clear that I did not want any emotional attachment and that this was purely physical. I assured him that our professional relationship would not be affected by our personal encounter. He told me that it was perfect the way it worked out, as he generally moves on after sleeping with a woman for one time. We both shook hands on the fact that we had a good time, and now all that there was left was being normal professionals. The next morning, I packed up my stuff and was ready to leave for home. I was already late and had missed a few calls and messages from Daniel. I knew that he would be pissed because I normally wake up early no matter what. The sex was so good with Jack that I was tired and had overslept. I messaged Daniel that I was so tired after the conference that I had overslept, and probably everyone had left, so I would be coming home in a few hours. I knew that Daniel would have a lot of questions for me once he landed as to what made me tired and what I was doing to have overslept. I decided to push all of these thoughts and think of answers for them on my way home and get ready for now. I quickly got dressed and packed up my things, eager to get home and face Daniel's inevitable interrogation. As I left the conference venue, I made a mental note to come up with a believable excuse for my exhaustion and oversleeping. Daniel was back home already, and I barely made it in time just before he started questioning my whereabouts. I lied to him that I went out grocery shopping on my way home, and that was the reason that I could not pick up his calls as I had my hands full. I could see a faint doubt in his eyes, but I decided to keep my confident face and smiled at him, showing him that there was nothing going on. As he continued to look at me suspiciously, I quickly changed the subject and asked him about his day. Thankfully, he seemed to buy my explanation, and our conversation shifted to more pleasant topics about his trip. When I woke up, I found myself in a storage container which was locked from the outside. I had no idea how I got in there and when I ended up here. The last thing I remembered was that Daniel and I were watching TV on the couch eating pizza. I frantically searched for a way to escape, feeling a surge of panic and confusion. The darkness and silence of the container made me realize the seriousness of my situation. I tried to see if I could find something of use to help me get out of here as far as I could. After what felt like hours of searching, I finally found a small metal rod that I could use to pick the lock. With trembling hands, I managed to unlock the door and push it open, revealing a dimly lit hallway beyond. I cautiously stepped out, relieved to be free from the confines of the storage container. As soon as I was out, I breathed a sigh of relief and decided to run to a place which was crowded before I could even make sense of what had happened. It was clear that Daniel had done this to me, and all I wanted to do was feel safe before I thought of doing anything else. My heart was racing as I weaved through the bustling crowd, trying to put as much distance between myself and Daniel as possible. I knew I needed to find a safe place to gather my thoughts and figure out my next steps. I made sure to stay in as crowded places as I could, but I could not let go of the feeling that someone had been keeping a watch on me. I made my way into a cafe and went to the restroom to feel safe in an enclosed space. I calmed myself down, sitting alone for a while, and made my way out. As soon as I was out of the restroom, I was blinded and taken away by someone. Before I could scream, I thought the coffee had made me sleepy, so I did not even have a chance to scream for help. When I woke up, I found myself tied up in a dark room with no idea how much time had passed. The fear of being watched returned, and I knew I had to find a way to escape before it was too late. It did not look like the storage container that I was in. The fear of being in an unknown place, not knowing what Daniel was going to do next, scared the shit out of me. I tried screaming for help, but there was no one coming to rescue me. I felt cold and also hungry, but there was no sign of Daniel or any other soul for the next few hours. I was finally giving up on life, thinking that maybe Daniel had left me to die of hunger. And that is when I heard someone walking towards the door and opening it. I acted as if I was still unconscious, so that I could process what had been happening so far. It was no surprise to see Daniel, but he looked worried. He said that he had brought food and some clothes for me as he could not see me in so much pain. I did not know whether he was being sarcastic or caring. I was so famished that I decided to first fill my stomach and then think about how I would want to deal with Daniel. I knew that Daniel was just trying to take revenge for my one-night stand with Jack, but it was not like I had been cheating on him throughout. It was just once, and that too, it was well planned out. It might have helped me progress with my career. I am sure Daniel would have done the same if he had a hot boss who was willing to sleep with him. I asked Daniel why he was doing all this to me. He told me that he was always aware of what was going on between me and Jack. He just wanted to know how far I would go to be true to our relationship. I knew that the only way out of this would be to apologize and shed some tears so that Daniel would let me free. I changed into the clothes he brought me and decided to put on the best performance of my life to save myself from this torture. I knew that somewhere deep down, Daniel loved and cared for me. Maybe showing that I was genuinely guilty and was forced by Jack to sleep with him would help me come out of this mess. I needed to convince Daniel that I was a victim in all of this, not a willing participant. I hoped that by appealing to his sense of compassion and understanding, he would see the truth and help me escape from his clutches. I told him that I had no choice but to agree to everything that Jack was demanding of me if I wanted to complete my project. Daniel laughed and told me that he knew that I was willingly participating in all the flirting and obviously wanting to do much more with him. I told him that it was not true, but all I wanted to do was show Jack that I genuinely wanted to sleep with him if I wanted to stay in the company and keep my job. I felt like this was something believable and could melt Daniel's heart and let him set me free. However, Daniel just smirked and said he wasn't buying it. He told me he knew exactly what I was up to and that there was no way out of the situation I had put myself in. I started crying and pleading with him to let me free. I promised that I would not do this again if he would give me another chance. He told me that this was exactly what his ex-wife had told him. He was naive at that time and gave her a chance, but she deceived him again and cheated on him, making a fool out of his love. He had decided then that he would never let anyone go so easily if caught cheating again. Unfortunately, it was me who broke his trust, and he had no choice but to punish me for my actions. I felt like I was trapped in this situation with no way out. I told Daniel that I would leave him alone and never come across him ever in my life. I knew I had hurt him deeply and that my actions had consequences. It was a painful realization that I had caused someone I cared about so much pain. Despite my promise to leave him alone, I couldn't shake the guilt of what I had done. Daniel kept me in that confined area for the next day. He fed me only when he felt like I would not survive without food or water. I was wearing the same clothes. I did not know how long I would have to live like this, but I was losing hope of having a different and free life. I could feel my body weakening, and the fear of never escaping began to consume me. Despite the despair, a small glimmer of hope remained that one day I would be able to break free from Daniel's grip and regain my freedom. I asked Daniel if he would let me bathe, as I had been stinking and I could not live in this filth anymore. I asked him to join me if he wanted to for old time's sake. Maybe this was the way he would let me at least bathe and become a human dot. When I went to take a bath, I tried to look for a way to escape. I kept the water running and tried breaking the vent so that I could leave this God-forsaken place. I finally had a breakthrough, but decided to take a bath before leaving. Daniel had opened the door to check on me, and thank God that I decided to stay. He saw me bathing and could not resist. He joined me for the bath, and we had sex under the shower. I knew that I was slowly gaining his trust, and soon he would let me free. I did not want to take any chances anymore and wait for him to set me free. Once he left the bathroom, I finished my bath and changed into fresh clothes. I climbed to the vent and jumped out of the small space. I kept the water running so that I could buy some time to escape. I ran as fast as I could, not caring if I was not wearing any shoes. I tried to find the highway, and once I started seeing a few cars, I decided to flag down one and go to the nearest station. I told the officers that my boyfriend had kept me captive in an unknown location and had been torturing me. I had no marks that indicated that I was physically harmed, so they had no evidence against Daniel for abuse. I took them to the place where he had kept me captive, but there were hardly any traces of him or anything that could relate him to it. They called his number, and he said that he was at work and had been worried about me. He even filed a missing persons report a few days ago to know where I had disappeared. There was nothing that I had in my favor to prove that I was actually being held captive by Daniel. They told me that maybe I was confused and could not actually make out who it was. I told them I needed an assurance and a restraining order for Daniel, and only then I was going to leave the station. It has been a week since I escaped from Daniel. I am feeling a bit relaxed staying in a hostel filled with people. I still get jitters when I think of going out alone. It is going to take me time to resume a normal life. I do not know if I will ever be able to date anyone after what happened with Daniel. It will be hard for me to start living on my own again and be able to find relief in walking out of a protective environment. I just wanted to share my story to feel a bit relieved and let you all know the dangerous kind of people living among us. I hope you all stay safe and make better life decisions. Thank you all for taking time to listen and relate with my story. I really appreciate your time and interest in knowing my story.